Hi, I'm Kelly Grafton, and welcome to In the Know, a podcast where we explore what it takes to grow, lead, and thrive as a sales professional. Each episode, I'll sit down with sales experts to dive into the training, techniques, and real-world experiences that shape successful careers in sales. Whether you're just getting started or well on your journey, you'll hear practical insights and inspiring conversations to help you stay in the know. So today, I have my first guest speakers that I want to introduce you, and I will pass it over to them to give their name and backgrounds. Welcome, ladies.
Hi. Oh, I keep forgetting about the microphone, but my name is Delaney. I'm an SDR since about early October, so 6.5 months.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Hannah Fitzpatrick. I am currently a client delivery manager here at Memory Blue. I started back in March of 2022 doing the same work that Delaney did as an SDR. Transitioned to our academy training program, fell in love with onboarding, coaching, training, and development. So here I am now with my own team of SDRs.
I love it. I love it. And you're probably like, okay, yeah, awesome, beautiful ladies, but why are we here on our first podcast? Why Delaney? Why Hannah? And you know, it's really cool. We have weekly sessions and I'm constantly working with the delivery managers, and it always piques my ears when I hear about people talking about success, not just for themselves, but what's happening on their team. And I really, really want to dive into those because there's so much winning going on in Memory Blue, but we have so many offices all over, and it's like, Delaney, there's something cool happening in Colorado, you might not hear about it, right? And the people in Colorado and all over the place and our UK team might not hear about what we're going to talk to you or talk about with Delaney today. And so this idea came to me. I was like, okay, how can we highlight what you were able to do? Because you said you've been here how long?
6.5 months now.
6.5 months, and she has maxed out, and you've taken full advantage of the SDR compensation plan.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure if I'm talking to like people who kind of have that sales mojo, like we're pretty money motivated as sales professionals. So I'm sure the people listening also want to maximize the comp plan for themselves. So we're going to show you guys some tips and techniques and how she was able to do that. So hopefully you guys can do it too. And so before we get into all that, because I just, obviously that's going to be the chunk of this, but Delaney, what brought you to Memory Blue, and when you got started, what was something that really was exciting to you once you got started in your role?
Yeah, so Kelsey, a recruiter, reached out to me on LinkedIn, and I was a couple months post-grad, so I'd been looking in sales, recruiting. I was PR, concentration in college, so just all those kind of roles where you were dealing with people.
And importantly, where'd you go to school?
I went to JMU.
Go Dukes.
Yeah, go Dukes. Yeah, so that's how I kind of ended up interviewing here, and then, because I always wanted to do something that was going to be challenging, working with people, yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then when you started in the role, so you're now an SDR, was there something that you're like, ooh, this is exciting to me, or was it more just like, hey, this is a job, it means to an end? What was the attitude behind it?
Well, I like a challenge, like I said, so it was exciting that there was a comp plan that I could max out and take full advantage of. So that was really kind of where my mind always was when I started from. Awesome. But yeah, so excited to get started on a client and just get moving with that.
Yeah, okay. And then Hannah, would you mind just going through what the comp plan looks like? So an SDR comes in, you start at a certain one, but the goal as far as how you talked about maximizing that comp plan. So what does that look like? Is it performance based, or what are what's the main thing that helps someone maximize the comp plan?
So it's performance based, and actually with her comp plan, it was also exceeding expectations as well. So originally coming in, that was the goal for her.
That you gave her? You gave her the goal?
She set for herself,
okay,
but we aligned together on.
Okay.
But with the comp plan, there's various ways in which you can actually increase your base. Mm-hmm. So her end-all be-all goal was to have the highest base salary, which is $70K.
Yeah, and she came, so you didn't hire her because she was on a different team, and then you got her pretty much, Delaney, your first week or two.
Yeah, it was about 2 weeks in when I got switched to Hannah's team.
So 2 weeks in, she's on your team. Now you're managing a bunch of different SDRs. So what was it about Delaney? Did it take you a while to kind of understand kind of her motivations, or how did you know what she was motivated by?
Yeah, so as you mentioned before, transparently, I did not interview Delaney, right? So she kind of was transferred from my team. So one of my goals was to understand her goals, right? With especially being in the delivery manager position, that's how you keep the SDRs, how they're motivated, and ultimately, put them in a position or place where they want to end up being. So with that, she had mentioned to me that she had this big goal of moving out into an apartment within DC. So one of the things I did is, okay, let's tie something in that she wants to do with her personal life and how we can accomplish that within the workforce, right? So kind of sat with her and aligned with, okay, we need to re-put out the compensation plan. So in the interview process, that's one of the things that we do. But a lot of times, it's a lot of information at once. So kind of realigning, whiteboarding out what that looks like, and then sitting down and creating an action plan to implement that.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point of what you're saying. Like some people might be like, oh, we've already gotten this information before they even started. But to your point, when you're going through an interview process, you're learning so much information. You might be interviewing elsewhere at the same time. And it's like, are you really retaining that information about how you get paid? And so I think that's such a great idea to be able to, all right, Delaney, you had a certain goal, which I totally want to hear a little bit more about that. So there was a certain thing you were going for. And what you and Hannah were able to do was like reverse engineer. What does it look like today that's going to help you make an impact so you can actually achieve that goal?
Yeah.
And so what was your current situation when you started at Memory Blue? Like, what was your living situation like, and why was it such a motivation to get your own spot?
Yeah, so I lived at home still, which I've grown up in Northern Virginia, so it wasn't a lot of people that I went to college with and also high school with were kind of in the same boat, but at least in my personal opinion, it was hard to kind of justify, because before I was working here, I was a server, so it was inconsistent pay, and it was a lot to move out when I was already still kind of in the area. So I just wanted to set myself up and be in a good position to move out and not really be limited and then kind of get to actually live in Northern Virginia or DC where I wanted to.
Mm-hmm. So you knew you wanted to live somewhere a little bit more city.
Yeah.
And based on your starting salary here, it didn't make sense to make that move yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive to live in a city, and I'm really social, so that was a big priority to me, was to like maintain my lifestyle, but then also move out too. So I wanted to try and do it all the best I could. So I figured maximizing my pay would be the best way to do that.
Yeah. How did it feel when Hannah took the time to like whiteboard out the comp plan again? Like, did things kind of make more sense to you? Was it more motivating? Was it more just like practical as far as like, I know like the game plan was very set, clear? Like what happened to you when you all were able to sit down and actually have that meeting?
I think kind of all of what you were saying, because I mean, she had insights from just being an SDR herself. Like some months might be tougher, or your quota might be shorter this month or smaller as you're still ramping. And also I think just helping, actually now I have a client, so now I can actually see what I'm actually going to have to do, because you hear about it, but then when you actually have the client and you're actually on the phone, you're like, oh, this is actually what I'm going to have to do. So I think just kind of planning and really wrapping my head around what that was going to take was just helpful overall.
And how early in your career did you do that whiteboarding session?
Like one of the first one-on-ones, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was either the first or the second. I think the first one I probably was just trying to get to know her, as I didn't interview her, but the second one was all goal alignment, and then from there, full steam ahead. And I think I just saw Delaney, she's not one to come in and just punch the clock, but rather actually have a why and a reason.
Yeah, because you wouldn't do this with every SDR. Would you do this with every SDR?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, every SDR that comes on my team, we do goal aligning from the beginning.
Okay.
And then that's what I prioritize is, to keep the motivation going and the grit, tying it back to their goals.
Yeah. Does everyone typically have like a concrete goal like Delaney had with like, I want to move out by this date and this is what I'm looking for?
Not everyone. No, and I think that's something that differentiates Delaney from most. Hence, you can see the performance within the numbers. So I think that's one of my biggest advice to people who are trying to get into sales. It isn't a punch the clock position. It's something that you actually have to want and strive for and have an end goal in place for yourself.
Yeah, and having that, not just I'm going to win the performance of the month or whatever that is, but having something even outside of work, like Delaney with moving out. So you were living at home. You mentioned you have a dog, right? You have a dog too?
Yeah. So my parents have a bunch of dogs, but I've had my own dog since I was a sophomore in college. His name's Brian, so.
Brian?
Yeah.
Cute. What kind of dog?
He's a Beagle Chihuahua mix.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. We might have to share a picture of that.
Yeah, I'll put a clip. You guys can put it on the screen or something.
That's cute. So, all right, so you came in, you knew what you wanted, you shared that immediately with Hannah, and she kind of created that space for you to do that. Now, what have you been able to accomplish? You're 6.5 months in, so walk us through, like, you did the game plan, but that doesn't mean, so many people can make game plans, but there's no, might not be accomplished, or there might be, this sounds really nice, but then there's no actual steps taken. So I guess before we talk about the conclusion so far, what did it look like for you to follow through on the game plan?
Yeah, so I have a notebook that I write all my conversations down, just kind of notes for the day, and just as a reference. So I wrote down, I guess, the math of it all, because it's a trailing 6 month. So I wrote down the numbers that I could keep track and actually follow along with the actual numbers of it all, to try and plan it out that way. And then I also keep track of all my prospects and people, and check them off a checklist in my laptop too. So I would just keep track, constantly being on top of like the numbers and what I would need to do, and keeping track of who's done what and all that.
Yeah, and Hannah, you mentioned like you would always see her with her notebook, like keeping track of everything.
Yeah, totally. So she has this little notebook, and she'd open it up every single occur, and I could see as the occur, she gets on, introduces herself, but after that I could see her kind of tallying and punching in the percentages, which is very inspiring. And I think that she is a leader on the team in that aspect of, hey, here's my goal, here's how I set it, and then here's how I actually implement and see the results. Which has just been really awesome to see on the team, and just to show people that it is doable. You just actually have to set a plan for yourself and strive to hit that goal.
Yeah, and I think that's where like people actually are not good at goal setting. Like that, I think that's why most goals aren't hit, because people aren't good at goal setting, because it's really fun to dream and feel like, okay, yes, this 70K, like that would be ideal, but if there's not something that anchors that, like moving out, I want to move out, and there's a burn. And then also your background's super cool as far as just like how you grew up and how you had to earn everything. So I think that would be cool to go into. But like we can talk more about goal setting and like what goes into it, but I think that was such a big component. It wasn't just you sat down in one meeting. I remember we had an accountability call with a couple of delivery managers, and we had set goals like a month or so prior, and then we got on the call and everyone forgot what their goals were from the last month. And so the lesson was, how well did you goal set, guys? And I think that's such a good takeaway for everyone who's listening, is what's the quality of your goal setting and what's the actions coming out of it, because the end result is the result based on the activity you do between your goal setting and the achievement of it, and so that daily tracking. And so I think that's a really good point, Hannah. And then I want to hear more, like take us back to Delaney before Memory Blue. Where does your drive come from? You came to your manager and you were like, I need this, here's what I want, let's make it happen. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, probably all the way back to high school. I did competitive dance, which is not cheap, to put it lightly. But yeah, I always had 2 jobs ever since I could work when I was 16, really to be able to try out for other dances and do solo and, get the really pretty custom costume and stuff. So from like ever since I started working, I've had 2 jobs, and I've paid for all that stuff on my own. And usually, as soon as I was 18, I was in serving jobs. And so, serving jobs are very much the mindset of, you're only going to get paid if you have a table and if they tip you, which means you have to do a good job. So always taking extra tables and not getting cut early, even if I didn't really want to be there that day, because that could be the difference of $100, you know? So just, I'd always kind of had the mindset of that, so sales just felt very natural. It wasn't like I really had to change my mindset. It was just kind of continuing on. Maybe it was something different than serving food, but I'd always had the attitude of if I want to do all the extra things, then I'm going to have to pay for them myself. So moving out is a privilege. So if I want to move out, then I'm going to have to figure out how to do it. So
you kind of like that figure it out mentality of like, this is something I can do. And what I hear from you too, because obviously we had a couple conversations before this podcast, but you just have this, I'm going to figure it out and I can do it attitude, not who's going to give it to me. And it's very opposite from the entitlement mentality that unfortunately I feel like a lot of people have right now, which they can change it, right? And it's something that you had throughout high school, throughout college when you were working, and you brought it here. And it's no surprise that there was that determination, the organization that you had to go ahead and get that goal done. Yeah. And so tell us about what happened in the last month or so once you were able to achieve.
Yes. Yeah, so once it started to get towards the end of March, and I knew I was in my spot for my goal. I was finally able to sign a lease, so I finally moved out in DC.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Brought Brian with me, so I'm in good company. But yeah, so it's definitely rewarding. I mean, to finally see it all pay off and stuff, and just be closer to the office and closer to where I want to be. So it's nice to see, it was actually all worth it, really working hard for 6 months,
Yeah, how does it feel? Because it's not like you set the goal and you hit it the next month. It was a 6 month, and you had to get over 200% of quota to 230% of quota to hit it this month. You were grinding.
Yeah.
Right? And so you were running, you were sprinting hard. But what does it feel like to achieve it? Give us some of those emotions of how you feel about yourself right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely really proud of myself because I know I worked really hard, but I also feel good too about the future because I feel like I did that by setting myself up well in advance. So even for the months to come, I feel like I'm in a good spot going forward, and I feel like I can breathe a little bit too. I don't have to. 230 is a crazy number to hit in a month, so I know that now I just quota is a lot more attainable now, and I know I can do it too. So it's also just some confidence too. Yeah. Yeah,
that's huge. Can you imagine what it feels like? When's the last time you were proud of yourself, right? When's the last time you felt that confidence? And it's so underrated and how important that is to feel that when you're going into any arena. And you can be the one who determines that by setting those goals and working hard for them. And then I just kind of want to circle back on something you said, because I remember when you showed me your notes on, you would have on your, I think it was your notes on your phone. Yeah. And you wrote not your quota for the month, but you wrote what your quota was for yourself.
Yeah.
Your goal. So it wasn't I need 12 occurs or 10 occurs. It was, no, I actually need 17 occurs, because you guys worked really good together on what's the percentage I need to hit this month to achieve the goal of, the 6 month trailing. And so that was something that I was okay, that makes more sense, because now it's not a Memory Blue quota, but it's Delaney's quota for herself to achieve what she wants to achieve. Do you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to add the specifics behind that. So typically, transparently, Delaney's quota was 12 for the month. So you never know what's going to happen in the month. And I think with goal setting, it's not linear, right? It's dynamic, right? It's always evolving, constantly changing. So we understood, okay, we could book out 12 meetings, but there are some things we can't control. Maybe a prospect might show up, or there's a technical complication, or whatever the case may be. So always having the mindset of the what ifs and being ahead of the game of that, I think, is the mentality that we kind of would think about and collaborate on.
Yeah, and she was always ahead of the game with that because of that mentality, right? You never came into a month and starting with zero. Mm-hmm. Right? You always had the pipeline going.
Yeah, usually I would try and set myself up to have if quota possible going in, so then everything else was kind of just what I needed to do for that month. So just planning ahead like that.
That's awesome. So anything else, Celine, you would add to, other SDRs out there who are looking to do the same thing that you were able to max out, because now you got a pretty chunky salary base right now, 6.5 months into your career. So is there anything that you would add that would be helpful for anybody listening?
Yeah, I say just don't get like complacent. If you have a goal in mind that you've set for yourself specifically, then don't burn out or don't burn yourself out before. Like, really just keep trying to see it through, because, and also starting off strong, like if you know what you want when you start off, it's a lot easier to stay ahead and maybe you slow down a little bit but you're still on track than to try and keep playing catch up, especially because sales, you can control people to an extent, but at the end of the day, like, a prospect might cancel on you the day of with no explanation, and like that's just how it is sometimes. So you can only control people to a certain amount, so you have to at least, I would say, start off strong and set yourself up from the beginning so that you know you're doing everything in your power to make it happen.
Yeah, that's good. Hannah, your side? Anything to add maybe to the managers looking at motivations or anything else that you think would add value to SDRs?
I would say just communication is the biggest thing, right? And not always assuming that you know what your SDRs are thinking. And throughout this process, by the way, it wasn't always the happiest of times, right? There were times where we were struggling and we had to pull it together, or maybe she was doing really well. Again, it's not this linear process. So I think in terms of a managerial perspective, just always communicating with your SDRs, their thoughts and emotions, and how you can best help equip them with their goals and moving forward.
Yeah, that's so good. So my main takeaways from this whole story with Delaney, you having that goal and being able to get after it, and just the partnership that you two had to make it so it was achievable. Like the first thing, like kind of what you were just saying, Hannah, like what motivates your SDR, and SDRs, what motivates you? Like, do you know what motivates you? Like, you knew that you were money motivated. Yeah. Like, that was pretty easy for you to identify, but you might be motivated by something else. Is it a career progression? Is it money? Is it, being able to be seen as a leader in your office? Like, that's really important to know. I think that self-awareness is so important, because it didn't take you 2 months to figure out what you wanted. You already knew what you wanted, and that made the process a lot easier when you and Hannah partnered up, and now you can create that goal. So, like, what are you motivated by? Can you create that why? Like, is there a why behind why you're doing what you're doing? Or like Hannah, you said, is it a check in the box mentality? Because if that's how you're showing up to work, then it's going to be very hard to stay consistent and do the things you need to do, because, success is not always the most consistent stuff. Like the Slight Edge or Atomic Habits, you read about habits, it's like, what are the things you're doing on a daily basis that's going to produce the results? And it might be the same, it is a lot of the times the same thing, right? Cold calling every day, LinkedIn messaging every day. But what is that going to look like for that goal? And it makes it more exciting. And so being able to have that why. And so you might need to reset your why now. I'm sure you already have another goal that you're going after, do you?
Yeah, I think my main goal right now is just kind of staying consistent, because I still, as much as I am money motivated, I also do want to do a good job. And now I almost want to, I've built a relationship and a reputation with my own client too. So I don't want to start all of a sudden like slacking off and not continuing to do what I've been doing for them this whole time. So just keeping myself accountable. And like I said, it's a nice breather to know, okay, maybe I don't have to hit that crazy of a number, but I still do have a quota, and I still want to be hitting that regardless of,
You know how you want to show up.
Yeah, I don't want to just stop performing that way all of a sudden, because then it's, then I'm not really performing that way still.
Right. That's, 100%. So what motivates you? Do you have a why? What is that long-range goal that your work fills into? So it's not just about cold calling, it's not just about hitting quota, but what's the bigger purpose that you can be proud of? Like when you said, I'm proud of myself, again, like imagine you being able to say, I'm proud of myself. What is that going to look like? And the cool thing is you can do that right now. You can set a goal and you can go ahead and like accomplish and follow through and be proud of yourself this time next month, right? So it is just a decision. And then the third part is that goal setting. So being able to, because 6 months is a long range goal, especially if you're in your early 20s and you're like 6 months is like forever away. And it's being able to have what are those daily activities and systems. You had a good system on how you track things, and you took ownership. It wasn't Hannah doing that for you. You took ownership of your tracking, and then you guys would come together, do the math, do the numbers. Hannah came in with some insights on, hey, December, January is a little bit different. Let's compensate for that. And you guys had that strategy, but it was based on systems. And so when you're thinking about goal setting, what's the quality of your goal setting? Is it just something nice that sounds good to your manager, that sounds good to your friends? Or is it something that's really practical that you can have daily actions? Because those daily actions are the things to get excited about, because the results will come if the daily actions are on point. And that's what I heard from you as you were doing that. So super awesome. Thank you all for joining our first podcast of In the Know. And I'm so glad we got everyone in access to In the Know of how to absolutely maximize the SDR comp plan and some ways to motivate and understand the motivations of people that are innate. So appreciate you ladies for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. We will see you guys next time on the next episode. Have a good one.